On this edition of Fly Fish TV, host Kelly Galloup joins stillwater expert Denny Rickards for a day on Ennis Lake in Montana. The lake sits at the end of the 50-mile riffle, as it's called. This is the most often angled portion of the Madison that runs from Quake Lake down a high valley to this point. We have hit the water in the fall, and cool temperatures have tempered the activity of the big rainbows and browns that Ennis Lake is known for. It might be a problem for most, but we have joined an expert lake angler with a very proficient local to maximize our chances. Along the way on their fishing adventure, they'll share some of their knowledge on how to get the most from your time on still waters.
I'm going to totally leave it up to you to tell me how to fish this place. You being the lake expert. And
well, Kelly, I'll tell you, Ennis is a very shallow lake. Most of the depths that we'll fish today will be 3, maybe 4 feet. We're sitting here along the edge and it's only about a foot or so, but on this lake, I'm going to use small nymphs. For me, that means my peacock calabatus, stillwater nymph, maybe the AP emerger, but small stuff. The rainbows and browns in here, they'll get pretty big, but the main thing for a guy fishing a lake like this is you want to keep the fly high in the water. It's tough conditions right now, as you can see, because the water is so flat, but if we get ripple, we'll do okay.
Will the fish change directions if we get a ripple? They move in closer to shore?
Right, they'll use that ripple as cover, and I think, when they come in a foot of water, they're exposed to predators, so they're a little spooky then. So we may have to fish up a little bit higher out in the lake, but if that ripple comes in, yeah, it'll make it a lot easier for us.
Well, Denny, I know they're feeding on a lot of insects here, and I love the way your flies look because they're general, they're not as specific. I really don't like those really perfectly tied, cloned bugs. And your flies have a tendency to be able to be, like it could be a calabatus, could be a bigger mayfly. What are you trying to do with your flies here?
Well, what I try to do with everything is make them suggestive, Kelly. I don't want it to imitate one thing. I want it to imitate a host of things, and to do that, it has to do with the body breathing and pulsating in the water. So we use long marabou tails. Even in the small flies, that marabou's going to pulsate as we pull it through the water. The orange is nothing more than a tractor, but this hackle, if it's long and soft, it's also going to breathe and pulsate. So what I'm trying to do is create the illusion of food, not a particular bug. When trout become selective, as you know, they get selected to the stage of the insect first. Color, size, shape is secondary, but if they want adults, we can't be fishing the nymph. If they want the emergers, then we have to change angles and bring it up. So kind of technical for a lot of guys, but it's just basically matching the fly to the insect. And a lot of times we'll find guys out where there's a damsel hatch coming off and they'll put on a damsel fly, but I've been on a damsel hatch, used leeches and just killed them. So trout, when they look for food, they're more suggestive, or they're looking for suggestive things, but they're opportunistic in their feeding nature. And if we do a good job of presenting it right, I think we're going to do real well. It's not so much the fly, first fly line, then what we do with the fly when we have it in the water.
Well, I sure love your flies. I've used your seal buggers, really become a staple for me for every possible type of fishing, and likewise your the calabatus nymph. This is the
Stillwater.
The stillwater nymph. And I've used that thing in just about every situation since I met, not since I met you, but since I started reading your stuff. And I mean, I think it's, even in the river, if you're imitating the stage and what it's doing as opposed to, people get so caught up in this exact imitation. And
well, I think, and you're right, Kelly, you've really broken through some barriers on moving water, especially with your streamers, but I got a lot from you. I learned a lot from you in reading your book and listening to you talk about the different stages of insects and fishing different zones. And it was kind of ironic that we both look at it the same way. You're doing moving water more and I do still water more, but it's the same concept.
After speaking with you as much as we have and in reading your books, you're really more concerned with the line and the depth of the fly than you are that exact imitation.
I am, Kelly, only because for a guy who's just starting out on still water, and especially in a lake like this, the whole key to catching fish in lakes is to fish the different depths, and you got to know the depth. So the line is really going to control the depth as well as the angle, and the fly always goes where the line is.
Right.
So if you have a line that's sinking too quick and the fly's not weighted, you're pulling the fly down, and the insect you're trying to imitate is going the other way, and the fish know the difference. So all we're going to try to do today is keep our fly high in the water. So for me, you can use a floating line, you can use Cortland's Camo intermediate line. This is a new line that they have built for me that I designed. It's a 7-foot intermediate tip, and it'll keep me real high for a long period of time. And it's ideal for this kind of water. If we were fishing deeper water, then we want to use faster sinking line.
Well, Denny, I know that in the river, if we were fishing nymphs or wet flies, we'd add split shot to it, but here, you're going to let the line do all the work and not have a shot on your line or not weight your fly. You're going to let the line pull the flies down. Is that accurate?
When you're fishing zones in a stream or a river, you're really fishing on the bottom, or you're fishing up near the top. You don't fish that middle zone, and it's pretty much the same on lakes. The only time that I ever fish on the bottom is in shallow water. So I'll use a line that can take me there, but I don't want it to take me there real quick.
Right.
If I'm fishing deeper zones, yeah. But for the most part, we can use the lines that you mentioned, a floater or the Camo or this new 7-foot ghost tip, and we can keep that fly high in the water. And if I want to go deeper, all I got to do is just count it down, let the fly sink.
Let the line do the work and let the fly sink.
That's right.
How long a leader are you using?
I like to go with nothing under 12 feet, but the leaders are always relative to the conditions. So as flat as it is like this, I've been fishing 12 feet here most of the time, and it's a good setup. I like fluorocarbon on the end with the tippets, but
How heavy a tippet are you running?
I'm using 3X.
3X?
With fluorocarbon, we can
fluorocarbon.
use heavier. If you're not using fluorocarbon, you might have to come down to 4X. But these browns and rainbows here will run up to 5-6 pounds. A lot of 18 to 21, 22-inch fish. And they're tough. They're hard fighters.
Yeah. A lot of people are more concerned with this lake being so shallow. I think they're always out looking for the deep spot, which there isn't really I think the deepest spot I've ever seen in this lake's 8 feet. But they're right in here in the shallow water, even as warm as it is.
Well, this time of year, you know, being the fall, the water, I checked it yesterday and it was down to 53, 54. That's cool enough. It'll bring them in. I'm just more concerned right now if it stays flat, we're going to have to make better presentations, better casts without spooking fish. It's just tougher. Trout are more spooky when it's like this, but if we can get that wind, and you know how to throw in the wind, but if we can get the wind or a ripple, they'll be a lot more aggressive in their feeding, and I think we'll do a lot better.
Great. So we're going to move out about 100 yards or so to that weed bed.
Many of the high lakes and reservoirs of the West are somewhat like Ennis. They have good weed growth and abundant aquatic forms, but are relatively shallow. Big trout grow here as a result, but temperature and pressure changes easily affect their behavior. One advantage these lakes have for the angler is that they are relatively easy to read since they are shallow.
Just over my right shoulder you can see there's some of Denny's friends up there in kick boats, and that's where the river comes in. This lake is formed by damming up the Madison River, and that's part of why this is such a prolific lake, because the Madison is such a clean river, cool, nice and cold, which helps because this is such a shallow lake, being that the Madison runs so cold that it helps keep it cool in the summer. And it's also what keeps the water quality so high. Below us, over in this cut back here, you can see the pass in the mountains. That's the Bear Trap Canyon. That's the other end of the lake, and that goes down and meets the Missouri River just north of here, about 35 miles or so. It's gonna, or maybe 40 miles, it's gonna intersect the Jefferson and the Gallatin, and then those are gonna go into the Missouri River. And that's why this lake holds so many fish, because of the water quality from the Madison River. What I'm doing here is I'm just sectioning off this shoreline. We got a little bit of chop came in, And so what I'm doing is I'm following Denny, just because I thought maybe with a little bit of chop here might push the fish in a little bit closer shore. So what I'm doing is I'm just shotgunning this edge. I make about 6 casts. I go about every 8-10 feet along the shore. I'm just kind of doing a slow retrieve, you know, strip, let it pause a second, strip. I'm stripping about 4 to 6 inches of line, letting it pause, maybe sink a little bit, and then I strip it a couple times, bring it back up, and just trying to make it look like something alive in the water.
Among the many things that Denny Rickards is that he is observant. The first thing he does when he starts fishing a lake is read the conditions. And then he applies his knowledge of trout behavior to his angling formula.
You know, this time of year, being fall, water's chilling down, and so that's going to start moving the browns in closer to their inlets to spawn. But with the water colder, I don't expect to find the numbers of rainbow in here like I find the browns. And as it gets colder, you know, the rainbows, they don't have the tolerance for cold water like a brook or a brown trout. So we're right off the mouth of the Madison River here, and this water is very cold. It's a little deeper, but I'm not seeing a lot of fish activity. I don't see a lot of fish working. So what I'm going to try to do is kick out a little bit deeper over to my right here. It's a little shallower, and I expect to find more fish in that shallower water, especially the rainbows. And this time of year, you can expect as the water gets colder, your bite's going to tend to move more into a midday time frame as opposed to early morning. There's no big advantage in the spring and the fall of going real early. It's more midday because the trout basically have a shorter time frame that they're going to feed. So you got to hit those windows when they're more active, and that sun up there is the whole thing that'll key that.
It's a lot like Denny's stuff, other than it's just a nymph. I actually saw that fish feeding. He was coming at me, and he was head and tailing. He was eating something. I assume what's happening here is that as we came off that weed bed there, that we're starting to get closer to noon. It's starting to warm up. And here's a frisky little guy. It's starting to warm up. He only fed twice, but it was obvious which way he was going, which was pretty nice. That doesn't happen very often, that it's so easy. But I had just switched to easy. I left my net in the truck, which is a bad habit. I just switched to a hare's ear. It's a beautiful rainbow. Pretty typical of the lake. Just nice, healthy, big cheeks. See ya. I just switched to a kind of a rusty hare's ear. That was the 3rd cast I made with it. And I do mine just a little different with a wing case. I use peacock herl because I like the way it reflects light, but other than that, it's just a real basic imitation. It's a fly that imitates virtually every type of mayfly there is in the water. And like Denny said earlier, he likes a generic pattern that imitates the motion more than it does the specific fly that's hatching. So I switched to the Old Faithful and 3rd cast.
There he is. That little devil, you just wanted to mouth it there a little bit, but I knew you were going to come back and get it. And then we got to strip faster when they run at us. You know, this is a good point for a lot of guys just starting still water. On a stream, you can put a lot of those fish on a reel, but out here, if these fish run at you, you won't have time to put them on a reel, so you got to strip them. And then how much pressure you put on them is relative to how hard they pull. I let them take what line they need, but they don't get it free. They have to earn it. So I use my fingers right here in the rod as my drag. I just apply pressure with my fingers against the rod to keep him from going, but keeping a tight line on him all the time is critical until we wear him down here. And for you guys that haven't done this a lot, just remember you always net them head first, never from the tail, because they only have one gear and it's forward. This isn't a real big fish, but it's probably 15, 16 inches. Pretty rainbow.
After Denny has taken his best read on how conditions might affect the fish, he looks carefully at what might be the best presentation for the situation. In all cases, one of his largest concerns is spooking the fish before they get a chance to see his fly. He believes we often assume lake fish are not nearly as spooky as river fish, when they can actually be even easier to frighten off.
Just a matter of time before they decide to take that. With the water this flat, you know, you got to make longer casts because we're going to spook fish. You just can't help that. That's one of the reasons why we use clear lines and long leaders, but with it flat like this, we're going to have to crank it up, make a real long cast, because the fish are going to get spooky if we get in too close to them. So what we're going to need to do is try to make as good a presentation without disturbing the water as much as you can. That means we got to use longer leaders too, and you always adjust your leader and tip it for the conditions that you find. So when it's flat like this, we may have to lengthen our leaders out 15 feet from 12.
You know, Denny, when you're fishing rivers, as you well know, you're always looking for structure and ledges and seams, but in lakes, I don't think a lot of people think of it in that terms, but you're definitely looking for structures and kind of the same things, aren't you?
What I look for, Kelly, on lakes is, I know that the food in all lakes is along the shoreline. That's where trout go to feed. When they go deep on us, and this fools a lot of guys, trout basically don't feed deep. They rest deep, and how far down they go is relative to whatever the oxygen temperature is to their liking. But the structure that we follow, you can go along any shoreline edge and expect to find fish in there, but it's going to be tough to fish if you don't have some kind of cover for them. So early morning before the sun gets up, or when there's ripple occurring, algae type water, nutrient water, these are forms of cover that trout like to feed under, and if they can maintain that in shallow water, they'll stay in there and they'll feed until the water temperatures get too warm and force them out into deeper water. But excuse me, but there's one coming at you there.
I
You
see
see him,
that.
Kelly?
Hit the water like a brick. Oh, got him.
There you
Oh,
go, Kelly.
Gino. That's a nice brownie, I'll bet you.
There he
That's where
is.
we want him to play. Oh, double. This one's coming over to have, this one's gonna let Denny net it for me.
Yeah, let me get this in.
Oh, sure, now it's all about you.
No, yours is a bigger fish, I think, Kelly. This guy's just got jumping itis in him.
How do you make him jump in your net like that?
It's years of experience.
Is
I got
that
lucky.
in the next book?
Just got lucky is all.
This is a rainbow. I thought it was a brown. Oh, a stump. A little stumpy. I thought this was a brown, but it's not. It's a rainbow.
Brown or a rainbow?
Rainbow. A little darker though.
Oh, that's a nice fish.
Jump him in your net. If our cameraman was any kind of guy at all, he'd go back to the boat and get my net for me. Don't you think? Yeah, get out of there. Nice. Hiya! think you wanted to leave me.
Got it right on the money, babe.
That thing's kind of nice when they roll around 3 times.
They should be
A
all
double.
along this edge this time of the day now. They come in when that ripple starts.
You know, it's funny, I had them, when you yelled at me,
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I had one riffle out there that was, there was calm between us, and there was fish working in that riffle. But when I kept seeing your rod bend, I had to come back over here and poach your fish.
They just seem to be a lot of big fish right out in that area right there. Well, let's see if these guys are still eating, if there's any more around.
Point me out another one, would you? I like how you do that. There he is. Oh, nice fish. Nice fish. Oh, mercy. Oh, get away from that log. Oh, just pulled out. That was a fat fish. I appreciate him leaving me those. I'm gonna just keep working this shoreline with the wind just like we are. I think they're gonna keep feeding right on this. So Denny, for a river guy like myself, if I wanted to get into this, what would I need to get started with a a real viable chance of being efficient at this? What's the stuff I need?
I think probably, Kelly, for most of the guys who want to get started on lake fishing, a 6-weight rod is right about middle of the road, and that'll handle most of the lake situations.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 lines that I would recommend over and above a floater, because everybody's going to have one of those from doing streams and dry flies anyway, but the Camo Intermediate made by Cortland,
Mm-hmm.
and then a sink tip line, whether it's a 5-footer, 7-footer, 10-footer, but something that is going to bring the fly on this angle, and then the other full sinker, the Intermediate, will bring it that angle. Suggestive flies, like your buggers and hare's ears, zug bugs, prince nymphs, all that stuff for me, AP, emerger, calibatus, stillwater. Those are all small patterns that you can fish high in the water.
Mm-hmm. Even in your, in my regular river fly fishing box, my flies, I've got plenty of flies that are very suggestive like that. Woolly buggers, hare's ears, like I said, most of the nymphs that we use will work out here too. So it's not like you have to start from scratch.
You don't, and there's one thing we probably omitted, Kelly, and you know this better than anybody. Streamers, you're an expert at streamer fishing, and streamers in lakes are absolutely deadly, especially for those big fish.
Fluorocarbon tippet and a belly boat or a float tube boat like this, which anymore are pretty inexpensive. They're not like they used to be, and they're really durable. That pretty much gets you started. So it's really not that much more than you've already got, probably just to, maybe the lines, and then learn to cast from these, because it's a whole different, watching you cast from this and watch most people is a whole different, it's a learned skill. So.
Well, you're a stream and river guy. You learned your skills there, and you throw farther than most water guys yourself.
Yeah.
So, but you know the advantage of the long cast.
Yeah, it definitely made a difference watching you this morning. If you don't have to go in close, and you were just, you're accurate with your cast, and so that makes a big. And there is a little bit of difference, but not much to. It's just another arrow in the quiver. So.
That's right.
Let's go out and do one more fish before we go home.
That would be fun. We got that little breeze rippling. This time of the day is a prime time for fish in lakes in the fall to be feeding. So let's see if we can't cap it off with something big this time.
If Denny has one choice for a place to fish lakes, it is the shorelines. Here, sunlight penetrates quickly, stimulating plant growth that provides the best habitat for aquatic life forms. Figuring out when and what the fish are feeding on are all that remains once he has decided on this location.
Denny, what kind of retriever are you using, and what do you normally start out with?
If I'm fishing the small flies, the small aquatic insect patterns, I use this little pull and pause about 6, 7 inches, about this fast. If the water's cold, I'm going to slow it down. If it's warm, you got a little more latitude on retrieve speed. Sometimes you got to just stop it, stop pulling, and just let it sit there for a minute. If I'm using bugger style stuff, I want it a little more pronounced and give it more of a harder jerk to make the fly pulsate. Or you can use a hand twist retrieve, which is age old but still very consistent, very good. And that works on just about every lake I go to. You cast back in there, and I took a nice rainbow, about 23 yesterday morning.
Yeah, I just saw one feed up there. I'm going to try to get up there.
It's really shallow right at the edge. You can stop right there at that gooey stuff, Kelly, and cast up in there and hit anything in there. It's a little deeper on the left-hand side as you go up.
Denny's got a nice one.
I'll let you know in a second as soon as this guy shows himself. Rainbow. Guy was cruising right off the edge of that stuff. I saw a dorsal coming this way and just lucky enough to get it in front of him, and he took.
Denny, would you rather be fishing from the lake to the shore or from the shore out to the lake?
I think you'll find it far more productive, Kelly, if you're out casting in. If you're in casting out, you're taking up space where they want to cruise, and you're going to spook a lot of fish. Most of the time, you don't even know you're doing it. As soon as that sun is up and they see that rod going overhead, they just turn and go to deep water or go the other way. Out here, we're casting from deep water into shallow, and we're not going to spook those fish. Pretty fish, probably around 3 pounds, 3.5 maybe. Took that peacock calabatus, and he is 19 inches long, but pretty fish. This is the advantage of fishing out of one of these boats, where you can just watch this shoreline and move along the edges here casting in. These fish are cruising parallel to the weed bed, so by casting in we show them the profile of our fly, which is exactly the right angle that you want. So it's just a matter of getting it out in front of them.
Oh, there's another one. About time. It's getting to the end of the day here. This one looks like a little brown trout. He's not quite as feisty as the ones those rainbows were, that's for sure. Maybe Denny's already exercised this guy. Let's see if we can get him over here. It's a nice brown. Kind of pale. He hasn't decided to start spawning yet. About a 15-incher. Maybe not quite that big. When I switched over to one of Denny's all-purpose nymphs. Nice little brownie. Well, the wind's dying down again. It's getting late. We've had a pretty good day. Had some really nice rainbows. That was my second brown. I think Denny's got a couple. It's been pretty good. I haven't seen much dry fly fishing, but that's all right too. This is just as much fun. It's kind of like being a kid. You don't know what you're gonna get.
You know, guys that are just starting out on still water, a lot of people think that this is really tough because lakes are big and they're deep and intimidating, and it really doesn't have to be that way. I started out on streams and rivers, but I found that in going to lakes, they offer some things that moving water doesn't, and I don't think you need to do one or the other or lock in on one or the other unless you have a physical handicap that would keep you from doing one or the other. But lakes offer a lot of solitude, generally bigger trout, and to get started in something like this, we already talked about that, but just don't be intimidated, don't get discouraged if you're not catching fish. Every time you go out, it's a learning experience, and you're going to learn a little more. And if you'll follow some of the keys that we left with you earlier, as far as the right kind of rod and lines, flies, fluorocarbon tippet, that sort of thing, and a belly boat, and fish in close. Give lakes a try. They're really very consistent throughout the year. Springtime conditions, you'll have to make adjustments because the water's going to be colder and fish will be a little more lethargic, but they're coming out of a cold winter, so that can be really a good time. And fall, this time of year, is really hard to beat anywhere you go. But you know, you got streams and rivers, those are also excellent this time of year. So plan on doing both of them. Learn how to do them both, and just don't get discouraged if you're not doing well, and hang in there. And you know, I know Kelly, he's an expert at what he does, and even though he doesn't fish lakes as much as I do, you saw today how good that guy is just because he can cast and he knows flies, and he learned a lot of that on moving water. So this is a little different. He does it, but he just doesn't do it as much as he does the other. A lot of it has to do with, you know, what your preference is. But oh, and I just missed that little devil talking, missed him, but that's all right. That's part of what this is all about.